We're gonna have some fun. I essentially got inspired to do this yesterday because when I was talking about the Grand Air Trine, it was just kind of popping out to me, and I thought it was important to share. So I got my notes up, my little timestamp sheet. We got everything. This Grand Air Trine starts on August 6th, and let me check some other things. Okay, let's see. What degree is Mars in? Mars is in, let's verify that. 27 degrees of Virgo. Okay. And then we got Pluto retrograde in 2 degrees. Then we got Uranus in Gemini, which is still in 1 degree. So pretty much the first day, it's gonna hit pretty hard. Okay. Interesting. So we'll be present for a while. Yeah. Hello. Oh yeah. Oh hey Beans. We're getting warmed up. Let's see who it gets blasted out to today. But yeah, this Grand Air Trine is going to be very interesting. Essentially, the second week of August is going to be chaotic, to say the least. It's going to be very chaotic. Let me post a little post on YouTube and see what the fuck is going on. But yeah, that's what's going on. Chewing on tea leaves. But yeah, a lot of political nonsense. If there's any time to... Oh, thank you. Lots of political nonsense with this for sure. There we go. Grand Air Trine, guys. Everybody like the live and then drop your sign. We're going to be doing an all signs reading again too, where I go through all 3 houses. Yeah. Hey El Mundo, like the live for you, boy. Double tap the screen. There we go. There we go. One second, I'm making a little post. People to see it. But yeah, so we got... What's going on? Double tap the screen. I'm talking about the Grand Air Trine that we're experiencing once Mars goes into Libra on August 6th. Everybody like the live. Why is everybody so focused on where I'm from? I'm never gonna understand that. Oh. I live in the States, if you haven't figured it out. I don't think anybody across the world really talks like this, you know? Everybody like the live. We're talking about the Grand Air Trine starting on August 6th. The August 6th Grand Air Trine. But yeah, one second. Let me just paste this link in my community post, and then I'll get started for you guys. But yeah. Oh my God, move. There we go. Okay. All right, so let's get started. So, we have the Grand Air Trine starting on let's get started. Okay, so we're talking about the energetic storm that's kind of coming towards us, which is going to be essentially on like it's gonna be very like political and very like confusing. That's kind of like what we're dealing with right now. But we're dealing with an energetic storm type of vibe with Mars and Libra. We're dealing with Uranus and Gemini. We're dealing with Pluto and Aquarius, and it's creating a Grand Air Trine. But don't let the word trine fool you anyway. Essentially, what's going on with that is like, like trines are usually typically good, creating a very abundant, a very like great opportunity for a lot of people to essentially adapt and really have a gift in some way, shape, or form. But this trine in particular is not going to be very good because they have a very aggressive, very aggressive like planetary energy around it. So with that being said, damn, we're ripping. Everybody like the live. Everybody double tap that screen for your boy. Put up crazy energy things right here. Make it go crazy for me. But yeah, so with that being said, what we have going on with this Grand Air Trine is we have Mars, we have Pluto, we have Uranus, we have, pretty much all that. And it's just like, these are some very aggressive planets. These are some very powerful planets. And I wouldn't exactly define it as the utmost abundant, gifted energy as like, most other trines would be, right? So we're dealing with a Grand Air Trine in this way. So we're going to unpack, like, I guess you could say, like, it's not gentle, it's not necessarily bad, but I would structure it as elegant chaos. It's elegant chaos disguised as stillness, and it's going to be kind of whispering the energy of revolution, if that makes any sense. So tonight we're going to unpack that, or I said it today for you guys tonight, but for me this afternoon. And we're going to take it through an all signs reading at the end. So everybody drop your signs. That'll describe the order of how I'm actually going to do my readings. But without further ado, let's get into the segment of essentially teaching what a grand trine is. Okay, so what a grand trine is a trine is essentially a 120-degree angle on the zodiac wheel, and a grand trine is all of them, right? Because we have 12 signs, we have 4 elements, which means we have, 3 main modalities to break them up, right? So there's 3 signs per element. And in this case of air, we are dealing with Libra, or technically Gemini, Libra, and then we are dealing with Aquarius, right? So, thank you, Beans. I really need to get that printed out. I gotta put that up on one of these blocks right here. But with that being said, that was funny. But yeah, so essentially Grand Air Trine is all of those planets and all those air signs aligning with each other in such a way that where they create a unique experience. Normally they're pretty good, but with this one, it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be a bit of elegant chaos. It's going to be stressful. It's a triangle of harmony, but it's a triangle of harmony with some very aggressive planets, to say the least, right? So if we look at it this way, we're 3 planets, 3 of the same elements, and with the air energy, it's all about like thoughts, ideas, communication, logic, collective awareness, collective thought. And everybody new like that live, please double tap the screen. And essentially what we're dealing with is like we're dealing with Mars and Libra, which is people downshifting their aggression and upshifting their elegance. They're upshifting their, I guess you could say, diplomacy. So it's just like if there's an issue, people could work it out very amicably. People could work it out very openly. People could be much more abundant in terms of what's going on with that energy. And then with Uranus and Gemini, we're dealing with a lot of rebellion in the realm of thought. We're dealing with a lot of, disrupting the system. We're dealing with a lot of disruptive energies, right? And then with Pluto and Aquarius, this is essentially like, the shadow worker of the collective that where I was talking about yesterday. It's how people essentially dealing with like a lot of like data, a lot of migration of, crowd management, crowd pleasing. that energy, and it's essentially like it's powerful, but it's very subtle, right? So when we're adding in these planets of the Grand Trine, it's just like, you know, essentially we're adding in the trine that's already existing, which is Uranus and Gemini plus Pluto and Aquarius, and putting those two things together equals what? That equals a shift in education, that equals a shift in consciousness, that equals a shift in engaging in thought and what platforms we engage thought on and where power is focused on, right? So when we're dealing with Mars and Libra adding into that, essentially people are going to be forced into some perspectives on what a diplomatic relationship is with that, right? So essentially it's like with people kind of like bopping around, not really recognizing it, there's going to be a situation some way, somehow, specifically around like August 7th or 8th, which I believe has another alignment on it that I got to double check. So yeah, it's basically so we're going to be having a Grand Air Trine on the full moon with multiple planets. And that is, no, it's not necessarily going back to school. It's reshaping the concept of what education even means to the world. And what I mean by that is it is an opportunity to essentially shift things, right? So it's like I have an online school where I teach a very specific skill. And a lot of people are moving to online courses and things like that. So essentially what it is it's creating an online community, an online vision of what's going on in regards to just like life, right? So with that being said, it is it's like an odd opportunity to where people are like shifting different perspectives on what could be in regards to thank you, what it could be in regards to like just how people engage with thoughts whatsoever. Oh, hey Mia Star, thanks for coming back. But yeah, so it's like there's a lot of shifts that are going on, and the Grand Air Trine is going to force you to make a lot of connections around that. So essentially what it is an opportunity to really like, yeah, I mean, simple enough. But yeah, so it's like, I don't know, it's very specific. It's very direct. It's very like geared towards you being forced to make a connection for purposes that you wouldn't normally would. And it's based around just being in a situation to where, you know, things are different in some way, shape, or form. So it's like Uranus is going to add a lot of chaos. Pluto is going to put people in positions of power to understand and mitigate those thoughts that are actually entering into society. And then Mars being in Libra is going to finally force you to basically like, I don't know, make a connection that you normally wouldn't have, because when things were all like peachy and creamy, you would probably be annoyed by this person and be like, oh, they're not cool. But when you are in a situation of need and practicality comes back into play, it's going to be like, well, we're buddies now type of thing. So if you look at it in the way of like, say, like not necessarily there's like a war breaking out, but like say it's like wartime, right? It's just like socially you may not want to hang out with this person, but in a time of need you guys really value each other, right? So think about that from the perspective of mental warfare, where it's just like we don't agree politically, but this quote unquote attack on information or an attack on ideologies is aligning us in such a way to where it actually is important, right? So with that being said, it is an odd Beans, handle these stupid questions. It's an opportunity to essentially like be more proactive, right? To be more proactive in thought, right? So it's like, for example, of people that are curious about what the topic is, that's like a very like first world problem type of problem. And if you can't even solve that, that's crazy, because literally you can just tap up here or anywhere around here and literally look at the description of what this entire live is about, right? So with that being said, it is an opportunity for people to essentially like, you know, face things like mental whiplash, deal with the aspects of Pluto and Aquarius, deal with the energies of what it means to essentially be more diplomatic about things you really wouldn't, right? So I don't know. I think like overall, I think the gift is a lot of people facing these hardships or these things that are about to come, which are specifically on like, it's like this Grand Trine energy is going to be the precursor to the full moon, and then it is going to basically dissipate right after and kind of chill out. And then we'll have another upshift when the sun actually enters Libra. But up until that point, it's going to be pretty chill, right? But it's going to be this on-off, you know, Grand Trine energy that is pushing people to be in a space of, you know, chaos, abundance, opportunity, and creating a wealth of knowledge around how to handle things and handle a lot of disagreements, right? So if you don't already have any mild amount of, say, media training or a mild amount of, you know, eloquence behind the way you speak, like, you're going to get it, you know? Because it's just like, what the full moon is going to do is it's going to open people up in such a way to where it's like, they didn't expect to do that. They didn't expect to do this. They didn't anticipate themselves being in such a state of like stressful knowledge or stressful opportunities to where they are, you know, so focused on the possibility of just being like needy or powerful in some way, shape, or form, you know? So beans, handle that. Just say it. I need that link. But yeah, so I mean, like, long story short, a Grand Air Trine is typically a good opportunity. But in this case, the only good opportunity is going to come through stress. And it's like a type 2 fun thing, you know? I'm so glad I watched those interviews. That was funny, finding these quotes. You gotta have slick little sayings, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, having like slick little sayings is leveraging the same energy as like a mnemonic device for like remembering a thing. That's funny. Yeah. Yeah, it'd be like that. But yeah, anyways, with this like Grand Trine energy, like, it's typically a good opportunity, but in this case, it's gonna force you to have a bit more class in terms of like basically it's going to force a lot of people in the world to have a level of class, respect, and eloquence, as well as, I guess you could say, etiquette, that like I would say like higher class people are traditionally associated with. So it's like an opportunity for you know, you're going to be stressed, but it's like not really something that's like physically stressful, and it's something that is, you know, like mentally taxing, and you're going to have to go through a lot of lessons and then learning about where you associate in the public dynamic. And it's like a lot of nonsense. It's going to make you think of like, oh, where do I stand on social media? Oh, where do I stand in like the public eye of the internet, you know? Or it's like some people may feel the need to start a personal brand and like stress, you know? Oh, wow. Wow, that's really thinking on your feet. Yeah, I mean, like, Beans, that situation itself essentially like breaks down the Grand Air Trine from a like pure energy perspective, but like how it's going to show up is you know, I would argue it's going to be very political, right? Because it's just like, for example, you know, Trump just dropped like the new tariffs, right? And it's just like, why is, you know, Myanmar and Burma have a 40% tariff and Switzerland has a 39%? Like, where are you coming to pulling these numbers out of his ass? But essentially what's going on, it's like stuff like that, basically, where it's just like stressful need to essentially be like, you know, just in a situation where you got to learn something real quick and you're like, oh, why do I have to do this right now, you know? But okay, with that being said, let's move on to them. Yeah, thank you. Let's move on to the themes to watch out for. Thank you, Mia. But yeah, and then maybe we'll I don't know, maybe I'll talk about the planets specifically. Do you guys want to hear about any specific like planetary alignments within the Grand Air Trine? Because it's like there's Uranus in Gemini, Mars in Libra. If you want, I can like actually like pull up a chart and like point at degrees and tell you about like specific fixed stars behind them. Because right now Pluto's angling Altair in the Aquila constellation, which is very aligned with the energy of what America was like founded under, stuff like that. There's a lot going on. There's a lot you can talk about, especially when you add in the fixed stars. But yeah, so when it comes to themes to watch out for, we're dealing with a lot of mental whiplash, by what I mean by that is like, you know, your thoughts are moving faster than your nervous system can process. So it's like that, essentially it's like that negative feeling of flow, of where it's like, you like, you know, when you're in your flow state and you're just like, oh, this idea fits here, this idea fits there, this is what's going on. Oh, I was used to you saying not real comments, but that's first. There we go. Yeah, yo, brain ticklers, like the live. Hook your boy up. But yeah, so when we come to mental whiplash, it's very similar to the flow state, of where it's like, you're just flowing, things are going good, you're coming up with ideas. But this is like a very stressful flow state, of where it's like you're getting forced downloads, forced upgrades, forced lessons that have to be learned. And essentially, yeah, pretty much. Jupiter isn't pertinent to what's going on right now. That's its own separate thing, which is like, it's actually on the day after the full moon and Mercury goes direct, so it's a different thing. Tough percentages, man. But yeah, so it's just like when we come to mental whiplash, like we're dealing with the energy of like you being forced to learn things. So it's like it's the energetic, it's like the mental equivalent of you being chased by a bear, and it's like you have a situation that you have to figure out right now, right? So people are in this space of updated, they're like, I don't know, they're like it's like you have to, I don't know, it's like updating and getting everyone used to living in the mental realm, if that makes any sense. So essentially, I don't know, it's like preparation for what it's going to live to like in higher dimensions, you know, because that's where it is. Like the fourth dimension is the realm of thought, the fifth dimension is the realm of feeling, and then it's like it all interacting in between. And it's just like with you know, it's like with those energies of mental whiplash, it's kind of like a little lesson in what people are dealing with. Like I wouldn't call it World War III necessarily. I would call that an example of the mental whiplash and mental warfare that we're dealing with. So it's like when we talk about the planets specifically, and what I was saying in regards to, like Pluto in Aquarius yesterday, it's like planting those ideas in specific ways with certain budgets to make them its own living meme and living organism of thought that is used to gain power over the population in some way, right? Like it's the same way that there's a lot of like fear mongering around AI and things like that, right? So it's like, yeah, is there fear mongering? Are there things to be afraid of? Perhaps. But at the same time, this technology was created in the 70s, and we just have the technology now to actually let it like live its life in some way and actually give it a vessel. And people don't realize that the more information you give it, the dumber it gets and the more it hallucinates, right? So why is all this fear coming out? Why are all these ideas coming out, right? Because if you put fear in society, you put the power of legislation in the hands of those that created the entity, right? So that's like the classic tech, it's the classic tech playbook. Make society afraid of new technology so we can have control over how it's regulated. That is the point blank period of what it is, right? So it's like the same way that people are talking about, we're talking about, it's the same way people talk about World War III, where it's just like, is it something that is really to be afraid of? Maybe. I don't know. You know, people could be a little trigger happy. And like things like that, right? Do I think microplastics are the biggest threat? No. I think it's like the same way people talk about different like conflicts amongst the earth, right? Of where it's just like there's like 10,000 different versions of the same thing going on in different spaces, and whatever has the most news or press behind it is the biggest issue at that time, you know? And that really comes back to the energy of Pluto and Aquarius in itself, of where it's just like learning how to weaponize and moderate and mitigate and also cultivate and manage sentiment of certain ideas that are being pushed out into the world, you know? So it's just like that's Pluto and Aquarius in an essence, of where it's just like putting enough energy and advertising budget around ideas to monetize that attention in a way that is, or not necessarily monetize, but commoditize the attention that people have for certain ideas, right? And also learning how to manage that and create that, right? Because it's like, for example, nobody really believed in TikTok, but then once they saw that they had an ad in Times Square and realized that they had that $1 billion marketing budget behind it, they can, you know, basically promote and create anything they want, right? So it's just like, you know, vibes, memes, aspects of culture are, you know, cultivated by a lot of things, and they're, you know, curated by different corporate entities. And, you know, you don't know what you believe and what purpose of where that thought originated from, right? So that's why I think very deeply about the origins of thoughts, the path of them, who controls them, who moderates them, because oftentimes where things end or where they begin. So when we think about that and like me talking about mental whiplash in some way, it's just like, for a lot of you, that is probably something new. That's probably something that it may not be new to everyone, but thinking about it in that level and that depth and like all those different steps that are applied to it may be, what's the word? It may be, you know, new to you in some way, shape, or form. So in some way, processing that may be a lot for your nervous system, especially for those that are where their like mind is predicated on the respect, culture, and structure of whatever political entity they live up under, right? So it's just like, you know, like the best example I can give to that is God save the Queen. You know, like there's probably a lot of old people. There's probably a lot of old people in Britain that are still stuck on that, right? Believing in that, and they're just like believing in the whole bloodline of Prince Charles, and they're not recognizing how it's like, you know, the Vatican City is the religious arm of the world. You know, London is the financial arm of the world. And then, you know, Washington, D.C. is like the political or army power of the world, right? So you got to think about these things and be like, oh, man, the politics of it, it's going to be some nonsense. And normally, like, I don't, you know, put a lot of energy into politics because it's like, I don't, you know, like really like in terms of like I live in the States, so it's just like I don't really care about it that much. I'm not you know, too up to date like some of my friends are. But essentially what's going on is like, you know, it's like there's gonna be political power plays. Like what people gotta realize is that like especially in American politics, it's like left wing, right wing, same bird, you know, and it's really just an organization of millions of, you know, selfish people focusing on their own like goals and furthering them for whatever they got going on, right? So when we think about like political and social power plays, it's like expect manipulative diplomacy. There's going to be legal battles for some people about things that they shouldn't be doing. There's going to be a lot of ideological shifts, right? And that's where it comes back to the Pluto and Aquarius energy of, you know, who's pushing that, who's lobbying for that, what corporate entity is, you know, guiding you towards that, right? Because it's like, you know, everybody has their own organization. Everybody has what's going on. And it's just like, there's going to be a lot of nonsense around that area right before the Aquarius full moon. Because it's like, you know, it's kind of like, for example, it's just like, you know, like if we're to take Trump, for example, Trump doesn't care about anything except the markets being up during midterms and him like making a fat bag. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to that, it's kind of like, you know, what are you going to do? What are you going to, well, I mean, like the astrology of why Trump thinks so highly of himself is because he has the fixed star Regulus on his ascendant. So he's a Gemini sun, Leo ascendant, or 0 degree Leo Virgo. No, well, when he was born, it's probably like 29, 28 degrees. But essentially, it's like, you know, yeah. Well, I mean, like, of course, countries are going to tolerate it. What else are they going to do? Like, you know, we have like for example, America has 10 times like one single unit of a fighter jet than Canada has aircraft. So it's essentially like the military might, man. What are you gonna do? You know. So with that being said, it's like there's gonna be a lot of political nonsense. Like who knows? Who knows? It's going to be a Grand Air Trine. Homie's a Gemini. Like, he, you know, they put a Gemini in office during Uranus and Gemini. What do you think's going to happen? It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be chaotic for the next, you know, for a while. You know? If you're in the States, Get out by 2028, you know? Uruguay, you can get a residence permit in Uruguay for like $5 grand. What are you gonna do? But anyways, the other thing that we're gonna be having is relationship realignments. So this is aspects of friendship, contracts, connections may either deepen or break depending on your honesty. That's kind of a big one right there, of where it's like, you know, you can't hide things. You can't, you know, you can't run. You can't do these things. You can't, like, I don't know. You can't hide, man. Like, that's pretty much what it is, because it's just like, with the energy of thought being in such like a state of chaos, like this is the same mechanism of tarot, where it's like you're shuffling the deck, you're shuffling the cards, you're shuffling all that energy around to have truth, right? So when the realm of thought is in such a loop of chaos and randomness, it's like you focusing on an ideology, just wanting the truth and just waiting for that first instance, actually makes it like clear to make things like, you know, to get that like psychic answer or that psychic connection. So essentially why people are dealing with that in relationships is like, are you truthful? Are you going to be experiencing this? Are you going to be sharing this? I mean, like, to be honest with you, I don't really think things are that bad personally. I just think like we're going into alignment that is kind of annoying, you know, like that's going to be it. I don't really think geopolitics is that fun. Like, it's just something, like, I look at politics as, how do I say this? I look at it as an excuse for people to be, like, egotistical and force everybody along with it. Because it's just like, my party's right. My political ideologies are right. And you're really only thinking about your, like, own personal benefit. So I try to avoid it for that reason. But, you know, it's something to talk about. People always talk about it. You know, Trump's making it entertaining, and he's doing exactly what like the Uranus Pluto trine I would expect from that. So it's like, that's whatever. But yeah, and then so one of the big things that like I highly recommend for all of this is the energy of mastering duality. So it's like learning to dance between harmony and truth. Don't keep peace at the expense of your authenticity. So it's like basically what that says is like, do you, don't plan, like create a plan, but if things change, don't stick to it, make the plan adaptable and stay true to your intention, right? So essentially what it is like during all these air energies is like, you may have things you want to do, but like, bro, you're going, whatchamacallit? You're going in like a different, you're going in a different realm of like what is, you know, it's just like the planets of chaos are all in air. So it's just like you may have a plan, but you may think certain things and you may expect certain things and you may anticipate certain things, but it's just like, you know, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? So it's just kind of like, hey man, like, you know, what do you expect when it was going to happen? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so with that being the case, we can go through the specifics of the planets. So let's start with Mars and Libra. Mars and Libra is cool. Mars and Libra is powerful. But it's just like, you guys are saying some dumb shit. Like, it's just basically like putting outward and direct aggression in your pocket and taking the time to be eloquent as well as eloquent in your speech and recognizing that like kindness, like, it's recognizing the difference between like being nice and being kind. So it's like being kind often carries energy of self-sacrifice, or it's like you're putting yourself, you're not necessarily prioritizing yourself and your needs, but what being nice is essentially like, yo, Beans, handle that stupidity. It's this thing called the description. Like, why do I have to stop and tell you? Why can't you just press the button? You know how YouTube works. Don't say stupid shit like that. Well, that's an example. I could have said that nicer for Mars and Libra, but it's not there yet. I can still be hyper analytical with Mars and Virgo. But yeah, so with that being said, it's like Mars and Libra is all about like that elegance, that eloquence, that etiquette, and essentially, whatchamacallit, you didn't have to ask stupid questions. Like, description. It's YouTube. You can just press the button, you know? So essentially what's going on with that is, like, people have to be elegant, they have to be eloquent, they have to wear things like, you know, they have to wear things like, I don't know, they just gotta be more like practical, right? So it's just like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all during these times. If you don't have anything, whatchamacallit, with what's going on, like, I don't know, if you don't have anything like pleasant to say, or you're not like setting your boundaries, like this is a time to do that. So it's like, if you already know somebody is going to trigger you in some way, or you already know somebody is going to piss you off in some way, the Mars and Virgo way to handle it is to politely just remove yourself from the situation, you know? Like, that's pretty much what it's going to be. That's what it's going to present yourself in such a way of where it's just like, you know, maybe this isn't good for my energy. If you want to have a conversation with some people, you may not necessarily have to cut people off in any way, but you may have to have like a nice conversation saying, hey, like, I don't like this. I don't want to feel this. I don't want to do this. You know what I'm saying? So it's an opportunity for people to, you know, resonate with something that's a little better in that regard, because it's like people are just protecting their energy. They're protecting their harmony, and people have to fight for their harmony. You know what I'm saying? So, essentially, that's like pretty much what it is. No, not yet. I think I got like another 1,000, but I'll get there. But yeah, so that's pretty much Mars in Virgo. Now with Uranus in Gemini is dealing with a lot of chaos and thought. It's dealing with a lot of chaotic energies. It's dealing with a lot of random ideas just going out there and potentially working in some way. So essentially what it is an opportunity for people to innovate how they think. They have an opportunity to innovate what they feel. They have an opportunity to innovate the way they speak. They have an opportunity to whatchamacallit, they have an opportunity to essentially like open up in such a way to, yeah, you gotta open up Uranus, or as the NASA people say, Uranus, for that reason. But you know, what's gonna stay the same? But yeah, it's a way that you can like move into a space of dynamic thought, shifting your mind, different aspects of chaos that you can experience, and really like positioning them in such a way to where it's like, hey man, you know, you can do this, you can do that, but maybe not. You need different tools, you need different space, you need different experiences, you need different opportunities. And it's just an ever-shifting dynamic of learning and communication, you know what I'm saying? So yeah. Now, when we move on to, whatchamacallit, that's funny. Now we move on to Pluto in, what the hell is that? Now we move into Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto in Aquarius is essentially, yo, welcome back. Pluto in Aquarius is the power-hungry one I was talking about. So this is where it was like, I went on that long rant about yesterday about how like there's the United States Pluto return, and they're trying to front run a lot of things with like the US dollar, because the US dollar's Pluto return comes up 11 years after the fact. Or now I think it's like 8 years away. So they're doing things with like stable coins and USDC, blah, 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 blah. And then the next thing they got going on is like, what is it? It's like, I don't know. It's just like different things of like what I was talking about in regards to managing sentiment, planting different aspects in meme culture, initiating thoughts and understanding ideas. Basically, everybody hooking up their website to Microsoft Exchange. Like a whole bunch of things in that regard, you know, where it's just like, it could be a little this, could be a little that. It's a whole lot of power management and people like doing different things with, whatchamacallit, whatever. there's a lot of people doing different things in regards to, like, I don't know. It's a lot of just, like, you know, political power play, social media management, understanding attention, getting more people on social media platforms. Just like it's a whole bunch of things with Pluto and Aquarius, right? It's innovating a new way of power, of where it was like, you know, it went from just straight slavery to slave with options to now we control your mind and we can have predictive algorithms to what you're going to think. And eventually social media is going to be integrated with AI to where it just auto generates content and keeps you engaged based off your facial expressions within the next like 10 to 15 years, you know? So it's like innovation in that way. And it's like, when you put all of this together, it's going to be like, oh man, that's a lot. We need less chaotic planets and air energies. I'm just trying not to think like that, you know? So it's, you know, it's, there's a lot going on, right? So yeah. I guess we can get into the all signs reading. I don't really have anything else to talk about unless you got different questions around different planets, right? So yeah, I don't know. It's like basically this is just mastering like emotional intelligence before you escape and lose yourself into acting like a child, right? So it's just like learning how to escape conflict, and you know, you're here to navigate yourself with grace, so you'll figure it out. Now, moving on to Aries. So Aries, right? We're dealing with the scales of talking. They're learning that not every battle needs a sword. Some need silence, some need softness. And basically the Oracle is saying they need a diplomatic detour, right? So when we're thinking about Aries, the houses that we're dealing with are the 3rd, the 7th, and then the 11th, right? So it's 3, 7, 11, right? So basically, like, Aries is just dealing with their communication style, their relationship style. So it's like they're dealing with chaos in their communication. It can either piss people off or spark intrigue. It's also, what is it? It's also, they're dealing with a lot more diplomacy in terms of their relationships because the energy of keeping their fire in their own furnace is coming up. And then in the 11th house, excuse me, they are dealing with the power of just like where they associate with and where they connect with and what they align with. So it's kind of a lot that they're dealing with, you know? They're dealing with the first and the last much more than the middle. But it's going to be interesting, you know? I'm excited to see where Aries goes with that. It's going to be powerful because they have, whatchamacallit, like, yeah, I washed my hair today. I did it with tea tree oil too. Why are you obsessed with my hair, dog? Weird. But, yeah, like, I don't know, man. That's pretty much the vibes with Aries. Now, moving on to Taurus. I want some French fries. I want some Cajun fries from Five Guys. Thank you. Yeah, moving on to Taurus. So, essentially, Taurus is like, you know, where are you avoiding the mess? You can't organize chaos. You got to feel it. You got to free it, right? So, essentially, we're dealing with the energy of the mirror breaks, and you have to rebuild what reflects your truth, right? So this is Taurus just like, I don't know, this is just classic Taurus being on some bullshit, you know? Of where they're like, they ain't been doing nothing. They ain't been feeling nothing. They ain't been experiencing nothing. They're just like out here just flobbling around. And not really recognizing the fact that, like, you know, there's a difference between protecting your energy and avoidance and procrastination and rest, right? So essentially what we're dealing with in regards to Taurus is like, I don't know, man. Taurus is just like, yeah, they're dealing with a lot of air energies in their earth houses. So we're dealing with Gemini in the 2nd. We're dealing with, what's the next one? What would that be? Libra in the 6th. They're dealing with, what would that be? Pluto in the 10th. Yep. So when it comes to Taurus having, you know, that reshaping of value and that chaos and value, when Taurus sees such a chaotic shift or a chaotic like confusion, they just shut down and they do nothing, you know? They, yeah, the multiverse exists. Why wouldn't it? You know? That's kind of what Taurus is not being able to handle right now, of where it's like, what is it? It's like Taurus doesn't recognize that, like, just because things are chaotic doesn't mean they have to shut down and do nothing. They don't have to shut down and do nothing, right? They can just actually go out there and make some things happen. So with that being the case, they're also dealing with creating balance in their work life, right? When they struggle with creating balance in their own life and things are unbalanced, they shut down and they quit. When they are dealing with power struggles of how people think about them and what different aspects of ideologies are, you know, affecting their status because there's too much chaos and power from society, they shut down and they quit, right? Like anytime there is a hardship that makes them, it's either fight or shut down and just like not do anything, right? And what Taurus is essentially working on is reshaping that passivity. They're dealing with certain reflections that they don't want to deal with within themselves, right? So it's a weird opportunity for Taurus because they're not necessarily dealing with their problems that are in their own mind. And it's just kind of like, come on, Taurus, like you can't avoid this forever. And essentially this Grand Trine is going to make you move one way or another, because no matter where you go to in terms of like your emotional watering hole, Taurus is you know, like they don't want to do it. They don't want to experience it. They don't want to be in a space that, you know, makes their mirror of what they feel about themselves break, because it's like they got, I don't know, they just be having opinions, man. They want to be doing certain things. They want to be out and about. They want to be making things happen. And it's just kind of like, you know, life doesn't work that way. You have to face your mental trials. You have to face your mental tribulation, you know? So that's pretty much it in regards to Taurus. Now, when we move on to Gemini, Gemini has all the air signs in their fire houses. So right now, Gemini is on fire, dude. They don't know what's going on. They're straight up glitching. Okay, so when we talk about Gemini, Uranus has them glitching. No way around it. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they're experiencing. They are thrown into a sea of chaos that they don't know how to handle, right? So essentially what's going on, yeah. So it's like they're dealing with a lot of aspects of like tech has them scrambled, thought has them scrambled, and truth are all kind of like shifty and scrambled right now, right? So a lot of Geminis are at risk of psychosis, to say the least. And essentially it's like, you know, it's forcing them to evolve. It's forcing them to rewrite the algorithm. It's forcing them to shift back to themselves and focus on what they want, because, you know, your thoughts are not your facts. Your thoughts are a tool that you likely scramble and absorb empathetically. And basically, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, you just, what's the word? They just use a tool that's very good for learning and adapting to others, and they neglect themselves. It's what I've been saying for a long time, of where it's like, they, you know, they're open, they're down to experience, but it is a, you know, it's like a, they just gotta, like, basically the reason why they're feeling so much chaos is because the realm that they use to learn and adapt to other people is chaotic, right? So the only way to get out of that is to exclusively focus on what you want to experience, how you want to deal with these things. And they have to have that, you know, realization to retract themselves back into themselves, if that makes any sense. So that's pretty much the vibe for, you know, Geminis that they're basically struggling with. But the way to stop glitching is to stop using the same mechanisms that you use to learn. That's it. Now back to Cancer. So Cancer's in a weird space too. They're craving safety, but being asked to lead. So it's just like, home is now your mission. Is essentially their field. They gotta lead with love. They gotta not fear. They have to have, you know, a heart-led legacy, and essentially, you know, build the space you needed growing up, right? Like, that's the vibe that we're focusing on with Cancer. And the thing about that is they have all of the air signs in their water houses. So they have Uranus in their 12th house. So they, like, their stability and subconscious mind is underpinned with chaos. And they also have, what would be, Pluto in the 8th, I believe. And then they have Libra in the 4th, right? So essentially Mars is leading them to focus on, I don't know, it's like Pluto in the 8th in Aquarius is really annoying. Because all these Cancer ascendants are dealing with nonsense in regards to, I don't know how to explain it. Like, no, I actually had to stop saying that. I do know how to explain it. I'm literally about to. But they're dealing with a bunch of nonsense in regards to, like, all of their deepest, darkest secrets, their deepest, darkest emotions, their deepest traumas. They're all, like, being used in public display. Maybe not directly at them, but they feel like it's directly at them, even though it's not. So it's just like, they're dealing with that. And then they're dealing with their subconscious being chaotic and them not exactly understanding what's going on. And then they're dealing with a sense of emotional regulation. Yeah. And then they're dealing with a sense of emotional regulation that is helping them struggle as well, right? And it's like during all that, like all that's coming up, they're like, you did this to me. You made me experience this. And they're like yelling at their family, but they're doing it in an eloquent etiquette way. And it's just like a lot, man. And it's just like they're dealing with a bunch of wind. Like, so look at it this way. Wind on the ocean creates waves. So when they're dealing with these different aspects of those waves, like chopping up against the shore, they're struggling to, you know, be heart-led. They're struggling to rebuild that space, and they're not recognizing that their emotional foundation is chaotic, right? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Cancer, I don't know, they're going through it, but it's not as bad as Gemini. Gemini is like, oh man. It's only bad for Cancer due to their emotional focus. But is it tangibly bad? No, it's like most of it's internal, and they're just like having an opportunity to rewrite their whatever the fuck they got going on. Now, Leo. Leo's being asked to shine without a spotlight. And luckily for them, they have all the air signs in their air houses, so that's cool. They have, what would it be? Gemini in the 11th. Libra in the 7th. No, not Libra in the 7th. They would have Libra in the 3rd. And then Aquarius in the 7th. So, it's asking if they can shine without a spotlight. This is like subtle radiance. Learn to burn with internal clarity. And essentially they have to learn how to crown themselves so that the world sees you when you see you, you know? And the reason for all of this is because it's like all the traditional mechanisms that Leos have to do XYZ is essentially being held up by all their forms of communication and public recognition, right? So it's just like with all this, with Uranus in your, you know, 11th house, what do you think you're going to do? You think you're going to be publicly respected? You think you're going to be seen as someone who is like respected publicly, or someone who is able to get their message across too well publicly, or their idea to be followed behind? No, it's going to be seen as too chaotic, so you can't do that. You have an opportunity to like randomly go viral, but like building a movement specifically off of you for the next 7 years will be basically impossible. Essentially what, I don't even know when I started talking about Leo. I'll just say that. So it's not happening, but if you build an idea outside of yourself, you'll come up with a lot of innovative ideas to make it happen. When it comes to Pluto being in your 7th house, building one-on-one relationships with anyone inside an organization will be seen as like snake-like, or I don't know, it'll just be like it won't be well received. Just because people are going to think you're playing power games in some way, shape, or form, which, I don't know, you probably are. So power dynamics are going to be blocking your relationships. There is also, like, your communication style. You're going to have to, like, it's going to seem forced for a while with Mars there. But you're going to learn, like, an upshift of, like, speaking dynamics and intelligence, right? Basically, you're going to be experiencing a lot of stuff where, you're going to be talking to people and just like, they're going to feel like you're poking at them and you're triggering them even though you're not. And it's just going to be like a lot of, like, you're going to feel like you're just talking to a child because you're literally triggering a lot of that stuff, right? So essentially what's going on with that is like you're just going to be dealing with a lot of people that are immature, you know? It's going to be annoying. But the thing about immaturity is like, the immature people are very easy to manipulate, but the problem is people already expect you to be manipulating them in some way, shape, or form. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like you're in a position to manage people. You're in a position to manage people in a way you didn't expect. You know, we'll just leave it at that. Now, Virgo. So Virgo is like I've been saying, letting go of the need to feel like they gotta fix everything. So with Virgo being in that space, mainly because of the Leo season, but they have like, I don't know, it's like this, they're back to their earth houses of having air in there. So it's like they're already the sign, they're elementally, Virgo is already the sign of dust. More so rather than other signs. Yeah, well, we'll get to Capricorn. But it's like Virgo is, how do I put this? I already did Gemini. Gemini is 47 minutes. Scroll back. Yeah. So, with all that energy in their hour houses, right? Gemini is in their 10th house. So they're already seen as very adaptable. But right now, their adaptability is being thrown for a loop. So it's either going to be really useful or really unuseful. And they're never going to know. So why try and really just focus on what they want to do? And then Libra is in their 2nd house. So they're really being forced to honestly speak to themselves with much more eloquence and abundance than other people. So it's kind of like they, them Virgos got to be, I don't know, they got to release their control and recognize that it's self-sabotage and really focus on what they want to do and make it much more clear in terms of their own abundance and acceptance of what they want, right? So when it comes to that, they are like, they got to let go of control. It's not a strategy. And they have to understand that sacred chaos is their clarity, right? Because right now it's like their work is their power. And instead of figuring out how people need them, they got to figure out where they want to be positioned in the universe, right? Because it's like when you focus on one thing for so long, the natural opposite of the dynamic is showing up and you need to take power in that. That's where Virgo's at, right? So it's just like their clarity is going to come after a shakeup, and they're going to, after their like sit down season of Leo, which is always their sit down season, where it's like, Virgo, shut up. Go in the corner. We don't need you. We love you. We love your help. But you're kind of like putting yourself in a position where we can just manipulate and use you. So like, what are you doing? That's where Virgo's at. Now, when we move on to Libra, Libra is in a space where, Mars is their muse, as odd as that is right now, right? So it's kind of like, this is your season to initiate without apology. use their aesthetic as armor, and essentially like, you know, strike with style and use beauty as their form of power, right? So, yeah, well, you know, you want to summon them, there you go. So it's kind of like, how do I put this? The energy of Libra is, it's all in their fire houses. They're kind of inspired right now. They are, you know, dealing with, I don't know, having Aquarius in your 5th house is pretty terrible, to be honest. They're almost doing what Virgo, like Libras are basically taking over for Virgos right now, if that makes any sense. So it's kind of odd. Like, I don't even really know what to say about that, because it's like they have, you know, Mars in their 1st house. They have Pluto in their 5th house, right? So it's all about like, what do the people want? And then they have Gemini in their 9th house. So it's like, what do you expect them to do? What do you want them to do, right? And they just feel inspired in that way to almost like strike chaos in their own airy experiences. So it's like, instead of them normally adapting and being the I don't know, they're almost like I said, they're just taking over for Virgo. So it's like, instead of them constantly adapting to relationship dynamics and like solving arguments and disagreements for people just whenever they feel like it, they're now positioned to, I don't know, they're focusing on ideas. They're focusing on creativity. They're focusing on opportunity, but they're doing it for themselves, right? So it's like they're doing everything that Virgo wants to do, but can't. And now they have a boost to essentially do it. So, you know, Libra's in an interesting space in regards to that. I don't exactly know what to tell them, but I hope they figure it out soon. Now let's move on to Scorpio. All right. So, Scorpio is, they're used to deep waters, but whatchamacallit? Sorry, you're making me think of the funny meme on the internet. So Scorpio is like, they're used to deep waters, but this is wind, right? So they have to move faster, speak sooner, don't wait for it to be safe. They're dealing with a psychic wind. This is, you know, air in their water house, right? So they have to trust instinct before logic hits. So it's like the ideas of the world, the logic of the world is going to be pushing their waters in a way that is used to, right? So it's like they can't be ice right now. They have to be a sea, a violent sea at that. And that's what it's going to be. So it's kind of like they have Mars and Libra in their 12th house. So it's a lot of like subconscious people-pleasing metrics that Scorpio is dealing with. They have Aquarius in their 4th house. So it's like power dynamics and family issues for them, or like the coldness of their own family is going to be showing up in their lives. And essentially what's going on with that is Scorpio is, you know, dealing with that chaos, right? And then they have Uranus in their 8th house. So it's just like, they don't know what deep emotions are coming up. They don't exactly have power and control over what they can focus on. So it's like they can't, like, basically like they can't separate thought. They're struggling to separate thought from experience right now. So it's like, normally they can feel a sense of hyper aggressive energy. Normally they can feel that like hyper focus on an emotion. And right now it's like, you know, right now it's like Uranus is showing them that they can't exactly deal with depth the way they want to, right? They can't exactly just, you know, separate their ideas from their emotions, and it's like all they can think about, you know? So it's kind of like they're in a tough spot in regards to that, you know? I don't know what to tell them. Other than just like, you know, trust the psychic wind, trust your instincts. Don't exactly like, you're not going to be able to brood, but it's not going to be hard not to, if that makes any sense. it's a tough one. You know, it's a tough one. So when it comes to that Scorpio energy, it's like the level of psychic impact that is coming to them is going to upshift. It's going to increase their potential to really trust where they're being led and not being too stuck into the feeling. Where Scorpio, it's like they know they get an intuitive hit, but they don't listen to it because they want to wait and be sure for some weird reason. And it's really just like, I don't know. It's like, because it's not necessarily a intuitive feeling that is hard for them to recognize. It's hard for them to trust because it doesn't really hit them in a light way like normal intuition does for other people. It hits them in a very harsh way and puts them in a position of where it's like, it gives them that Plutonian feeling of feeling like they need to work on something but being too afraid to work on it and really just honing in on that depth of pain or whatever like it made them feel, right? And right now it's like they're kind of going to be living like a Gemini, you know? It's going to be like where the wind takes them type of feel. So it's like Scorpios during this Grand Air Trine are getting a huge lesson in the opportunity to just, you know, like it's not like they're like, I would say they're more living like a Gemini rather than a Pisces, but it's like they're getting that you know, in conjunction boost to that in conjunction break, and just based off where this Grand Air Trine is hitting all their, you know, water houses. So it's essentially an opportunity for them to really get a strong lesson in acting on intuition rather than brooding on it, you know? So it's like that's kind of where it is. So what's going on with the Sagittarius? Okay, so Sagittarius is essentially dealing with their beliefs are being tested. You know, this is because they have all the air signs in their, you know, fire houses. And it's kind of asking them the question of, can you still aim high when your old truths fall apart? It's going to be a wanderer's trial, and they're going to have to let go of maps and essentially trust the stars, right? So essentially what it is an opportunity for Sagittarius to like follow through on something that actually means something to them, you know? Not just relying on the optimism to lead them, not just relying on the dream, not just relying on the sense of not just relying on the sense of meaning that they give to the world, and recognizing that they have to focus on the meaning that they give to themselves, right? So essentially what's essentially what's going on with them is, what is it? Oh wait, no, they don't have, they have the air in their air houses, I'm sorry. So it's just like blowing the wind wherever the wind's blowing extra. So they have Uranus in their 7th house, so relationships are going to be annoying. They have, whatchamacallit, what's in their, Mars in their 11th house, and then they have Pluto in their 3rd house. So essentially what that leads to is, essentially what that leads to is them, you know, them Sagittarius are going to be like, relationships aren't stable, so they don't have a lot of opportunity to share that creativity that they want to. The, whatchamacallit, the way they connect with society is going to be put to the test, seeing how much they can, whatchamacallit, when am I going to Pakistan? I don't know, randomly, probably on a whim. I heard it's a beautiful country. A lot more diverse climates than I expected. But anyways, so it's just like when it comes to their 11th house, they're dealing with, they're gonna have to deal with a sense of elegance, not necessarily because they are not respected or not appreciated, but more so because they basically just because other people are going through a bunch of shit that they have to, you know, feel the triggers of public society and the chaos that they're going through and learn how to not, you know, be pulled down like a crab in a barrel for their own optimism, right? So it's just like, this is why they have to focus on optimism and excitement for themselves. This is why they have to focus on that energy for themselves. Mainly because everybody else is going to be going through some shit and they can't exactly be the uplifting energy that, you know, they normally are, even though they want to find a way to uplift people, which they will. And then when we come to their third house, you know, they're going to be triggering. Pluto's there. They are going to be pissing people off without a shadow of a doubt. So essentially what it is they whatchamacallit, like, I don't know. They just gotta learn how to not trigger people because they will. That's pretty much it. So yeah, that's pretty much the vibe for whatchamacallit, Sagittarius. Ooh, Capricorn is 111. Okay, Capricorn. Capricorn, I just gotta stand up for a second. Capricorn is dealing with a lot of the, whatchamacallit, the air energies being in, what house is it? They're dealing with it in their earth houses. So with their earth houses, they are facing the fact that there's a lot of power behind what they value. There's a lot of fear behind what they value, and there's a lot of pressure behind what they value. So Capricorn is dealing with the energies of, they're used to being in control. This is asking them to surrender. They have to evolve their ambitions. They have to, yeah, I mean, like, Beans, drop the link. I do live paid tarot readings. I have a link for that. Pay the way, man. But once again, I'm just waiting on my channel to get monetized. We'll get to that. But essentially what's going on with readings right there, dog. Jeebus. You're funny. So essentially what's going on with Capricorn is they have to release control, and strategy is now shifting to flexibility, right? And this is like, you know, it's dealing with you know, technology plus exponentiality, right? So everything's getting faster, cheaper, better when it comes to technology. And it comes to Capricorn's goals, they have to adapt around that. That's essentially what's going on. So when it comes to Capricorn with Pluto in their second house, what would that be? Uranus in their sixth house. And then they have Libra in their 10th house. Capricorn is dealing with adaptation and elegance at its finest, to where they have gone through, or they are continuously going through, the energy of vulnerability and opening themselves up to people in such a way to where they can actually share what they're going through and recognize that their goals are shifting. They don't know what they need to adapt to. They don't necessarily understand what's going on in how to, you know, share an opportunity of abundance, even though they don't see it or feel it, or they don't have something to work towards. So Capricorn is working on it, but they have, you know, they got a lot going on, you know? They got a lot to experience. They got a lot to deal with. They got a lot to have an opportunity for, you know? So essentially what's going on is they got to recognize that, like, the expectations that they feel from anyone and everyone else around them, they need to learn how to let go and recognize that that wasn't who they are. That's not who they are. They need to, what's the word? I don't know. They need to just let go and recognize that they spent so much time thinking about what they thought other people thought, and that's not what it is anymore. You don't have to do that. You can just focus on you. It's okay. And understand that it's okay to accept the change. Just let it go. So yeah, that's Capricorn. Moving on to Aquarius. What time? Perfect. So Aquarius, Pluto's cracking them open now, right? They were on some hot shit a second ago, and now it just ain't working. So Pluto's like, you know, they're cracking their crown open. They're being called into leadership, and they must come from, you know, it must come from a space of service, right? So they're dealing with all the air energy in their fire houses. And it's just like Aquarius was always knowledgeable. They're always open. They're always understanding of, you know, life. They're always understanding of how social dynamics work. They're always open to Melly Mel. Essentially, you know, Aquarius is dealing with the fact that everybody is using their way of gaining power and control in society. Everybody is now. Essentially what's going on is, you know, the collective flame and what you build must benefit more than you, right? Because it's just like if everybody's on your, you know, wave of learning how you gain power and control over life, you gotta basically show them how to benefit them, right? Because they're new to it. They don't exactly understand. They're not in the space to, you know, reflect in such a way that is powerful. They don't understand it. They don't understand the evil behind it. They don't understand the good behind it. They don't understand the opportunity behind it as a whole. And right now they need to be in service, right? So with Uranus being in their 5th house, they're going to get creative. They're going to level up their ways of Aquarianating and being an Aquarian in the entire world around them. With Mars being in their 9th house, they're going to be motivated to share the philosophies of what it means to be an Aquarius, to understand social dynamics, and especially being a popular Aquarius moon for no reason, because you feel what the collective is. You feel what everyone's going through. You can feel the thought process behind it. And like it said, you know, you got to fan the collective flame. You have to understand that what you build must benefit more than you now, because everybody's got your same power dynamics. Everybody's got the same manipulation methods. Everybody's on your wave right now, and you gotta learn. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty, I don't know, it's pretty simple. Moving on to Pisces. So Pisces, right? Pisces is Neptune's fogging their leads again. They're, you know, fogging their values. They're fogging what they need to do. And essentially what's going on is that the, whatchamacallit? Hey, man. When it comes to someone that you see as your enemy and you are telling them what they're bad at, you don't really realize the gift that you're giving that person, right? I know how to be entertaining, but I'm being very blunt right now. So when it comes to you, like if your intention was to make a personal attack or tear me down in any way, you need to recognize that you boosted me in the algorithm. You told me a way to improve. It just wasn't said nicely. So think about that. Now, when it comes to Pisces, the fog is essentially revealing their own illusions, right? So it comes back to the sense of value, and this is with Neptune and Aries being in their 2nd house. But with all the air planets are essentially being in their, what houses? The air planets are in their water houses, right? So we have Pluto in the 12th. We have, I always get distracted by this. So there's Pluto in the 12th. There's Mars in the 8th. And then there is Gemini in the 4th, right? So it's like Pisces very well may vanish from their family for the next decade, you know? Like, we don't know. They may show up, they may leave. You don't know if they're coming or going. You don't know what's going on. You don't know where their heart's at. That's besides the point. Mars is in their 8th house, so sharing emotional depth with the level of eloquence and, you know, beauty is going to be an understatement, right? So they're going to be connecting with people, they're going to be sharing with people, they're going to be experiencing life with people. And instead of feeling the collective emotion, they're going to be like directly in it, right? So when it comes to their values, they're going to recognize that even though they are attached to everybody in the world spiritually, they were disconnected physically. And they're going to reintegrate themselves into the physical community and actually share these things with people. So it's, you know, they're dealing with a sacred dissolve, you know? What they lose, it never loved them back. So it's just like they were just giving for the sake of giving and just being a people pleaser, right? And now they're gonna connect physically and see what it is for real. So yeah, but that's pretty much it, guys. When it comes to that, I'll hang out for a little bit. If you got questions, let me know. Everybody drop some questions. I gotta go take a little break and get some more water. Alrighty. We got any questions? Apparently not. All right, guys. Well, if you're interested in learning more about astrology and you want an opportunity to learn with me one-on-one, as well as having a bunch of different courses and different aspects of astrology, check out the Alchemists Laboratory. It's in the description. Yeah. That's pretty much it. I'll catch y'all later.